Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. I know that we're all familiar with the horror stories about what happens when a DM picks a favorite. One player gets all the roleplay opportunities, all the best loot, the entire story of the campaign setting revolves around their character, and you start wondering if this guy is dungeoning the DM's dragon under the table. Know what I'm saying? Ahem. But what happens when it's the exact opposite? That's right, dear listener, despite Ginger not being a playable race in D&D, you too can experience the neglect and abuse of a red-headed stepchild. The story I have for you today stars a player who begins to pick up on some discrepancies in the treatment of their character compared to the other party members and even the NPCs, which eventually culminates into a special plot-contrived surprise that nobody but the DM wanted to happen. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of R/RPG-Horror-Stories. Enjoy. This week's story comes from Reddit user VariousSkill5313 and is titled, "I quit a 6-year-long D&D campaign right before the final boss fight because I couldn't endure my frustration anymore. I'm sorry if I make mistakes. English is not my first language, and I need a place to vent because I'm going crazy." This campaign was based around the Danmachi anime setting, and for those of you who don't know, in Danmachi, normally you'd get a special perk depending on your performance in the dungeon. Like, if you're someone that ran away a lot of times from a monster, you'd eventually develop a skill called Coward, and it increases your movement speed when, well, you run away from encounters. But here, things worked differently. You'd get a skill every 3rd level, and its rarity and ability depending on a D100. Of course, the rarer the skill, the stronger it was. They were all created by the DM with no real bias whatsoever. There wasn't a chart we could read to get an understanding of what we could get. And so for at least us players, it was all random. There was even a chance for us to get no skills at all in a roll. Add a DM who thinks that NPCs should have the same importance as players, and this system was doomed to fail from the start. I played a bard that had a very simple and humble background. She was the daughter of a librarian in a small village, and her reading all the stories there got her inspired and longing to be a legendary hero like the people in her books. At first, everything was going pretty well. The DM was very good at roleplay, and it felt like I was actually talking to someone. But then the first combat with NPCs as our allies came along. They all had special skills, which synergized pretty well with them, and the fact that they all had actual class level and build depth. They were pretty strong. Stronger than us, in fact. And that was the start. After that, the number of allies and even enemies with these unique skills only became more common, killing the entire rarity importance of these skills. That's not to say that any of us didn't get lucky with the skills we rolled, but it was nothing compared to NPCs. In fact, by the time I reached level 17, I only had one useful and powerful skill, which was to decide to naturally crit with a 20 on any D20, apart from saving throws. But all the rest I had were like completely useless. I could create a mundane, very small, and crude item from nothing once per day as a fast action. My hands were +1 to hit, which is completely useless for a bard. I could make a clone of myself, but the drawbacks were so bad that I couldn't actually use it. I had half of my total HP, we both shared the same resources, and I had to use a standard action to use it. Considering how my hit dice was a D6 and even a D4 sometimes, I didn't have a lot of HP, and one simple AoE spell easily killed me. Surprisingly enough, this is a pretty common blunder among even experienced DMs. NPC power creep. For me at least, NPC creation is one of the most fun parts of being a DM. Interesting characters make for interesting stories. So if you want your players to interact with the world you made, the best way to do it is to fill it with fun people. However, this is a slippery slope. You're gonna want some badasses crip walking around your world, striking equal parts fear and wonder into the hearts of plucky young adventurers. years. We've been populating our fiction with superhumans since the first apes started drawing on cave walls with their own feces. That's just human nature. Writing overpowered heroes, I mean, not the poop art. I like to think that humans have evolved beyond such activities. But I will say that spending a few years of my life living near Los Angeles has me thinking I may be wrong about that. Anyway, back on topic. By itself, having a handful of super strong NPCs is actually a good thing. It's important to remind your players that there is always a bigger fish, and their true power comes from relying on one another, and thus the team game aspect of D&D comes into play. The problem arises when the NPCs become so strong and so cool that the PCs become redundant. Imagine playing Resident Evil 4 and Ashley comes equipped with special forces training, an infinite rocket launcher, and a black belt in jujitsu, and the rest of the game is just you following her around while she escorts you. Yeah, that doesn't sound very fun now, does it? The same logic applies to D&D. The best way to get players scrolling on their phones instead of immersing themselves in the game is to have a member of their squad be head and shoulders better than them at everything, while simultaneously not even being piloted by a player. So, how do we implement powerful NPCs into your RPG that aren't read by the players as, oh god, I'm being held hostage while the DM plays show and tell with his OCs? Give them explicit and realistic reasons why the NPCs are not doing what the party is doing. Maybe they're a secret villain and are actively trying to hinder the party. Maybe because they're so powerful, they're just way too busy with other matters to concern themselves with the party's puny problems. Maybe they're jaded by the state of the world and just want a quiet life away from adventuring. Or maybe the party just smells bad. There's a piece of advice floating around the D&D community that I really enjoy that advises you to be a fan of the player characters. Basically, that means that you want the players to succeed, but you also don't want their wins to be handed to them. And while fun, overpowered NPCs directly contradict the be a fan mentality. Because it shows the players that 1, their story isn't as interesting as the characters that you as the DM have created, and 2, that none of their victories are hard-earned because the NPCs could easily barge in and win the day for them. So go ahead, populate the world with powerful NPCs, but just remember that NPCs are supposed to be flavor dressings to the party's main course, and nobody wants to be force-fed a pile of salt. Moving on. In the first half of this campaign, I felt like a secondary character. Remember earlier where I said that you can only get skills every 3 levels? Well, you could actually get them through advancing the plot of the campaign, which all of my party members got, but me. They all got super cool and unique abilities, like consider this. Our party was a wizard, a paladin, and a hexblade. The paladin got to share his god's power, and he had a unique bond with him and a unique sword. He was his avatar, his champion. The hexblade was the prince of all the Xenos, which was a race of intelligent monsters that live in the dungeon, and could resurrect dead people as Xenos, and had cool shadow powers and could make himself ethereal. The wizard got blessed by entities from beyond this world and could predict the future by reading the stars. He also could have access to knowledge checks that only he could do. Homebrew OP spells, and we discovered that his family were actually the protectors of the material plane of all of this DM's campaigns. He could also create a safe bubble between planes, which gave us time to heal ourselves in peace during battles. Meanwhile, the only thing that I got from my background was an NPC from my hometown, which later became my husband. I mean, yeah, sure, the NPC was strong and all, but everyone got an actual ability which their character gets to use and shape the story with. Meanwhile, I got the aid of an NPC, which wasn't like a dragon or some powerful entity, no, it was just your ordinary rogue with a unique skill, where I wanted to feel unique. I wanted to feel powerful like the others. But nonetheless, this never happened. It only got worse. So much, in fact, that my bard got nicknamed Living to Hit Bonus by the other players. I, of course, talked to the DM about it, how I felt frustrated that NPCs were stronger and felt more important to me, the issue about the skill system that he invented, and the fact that I didn't get any kind of special skills, but nothing could get through his head. The only thing that really changed, I guess, was the number of future NPCs with unique skills, but it didn't really make a difference. I endured all of it because I had fun role-playing. Even though the fights sucked ass, they were all super lethal. Like, we could die from a simple random encounter and our DM didn't give us magic items, which in 3.5 are super important. At the end of the first half of the campaign, in one of the major arcs of the story, my bard made a speech before the fight with the BBEG. So good that my DM rewarded me and my allies with a giant morale boost to hit and damage. It was like a +10, and my bardic inspiration at the time gave only a +4, which is pretty huge in 3.5. But right before the start of the fight, this non-magical buff got dispelled by the BBEG, and I felt bad. Like, really, really bad. For the first time in this campaign, I felt rewarded by my efforts, and it lasted nothing. Later, the DM explained that thanks to my buff, the BBEG dispel couldn't remove other buffs. But that doesn't mean shit to me. Like, what the f***? Why can't you just let me have this? And so that was the end of the first half. We saved an important town from the BBEG at the time, and everyone got a happy epilogue. But my bard wasn't renowned at all for being an outstanding adventurer. No, in her epilogue, the DM explained that she became a famous musician instead. I felt frustrated, but I knew that that was not the end of the story, because the DM had a second season planned, and he assured me that he had big plans for my character. Fast forward a couple of months, and this second season starts with new characters, but we'll skip this and we'll fast forward again by 2 years IRL. The only thing of importance was that our old party was sealed in time in the deepest part of the dungeon. Eventually the new party saved the old one, and we got to play both of them sometimes. I discovered that my character got pregnant, which is something I told my DM I did not want with my husband, and that the fetus is under an enchantment that protects it from harm, so I could fight normally as I always did. I, of course, did not like this at all. Forced pregnancy is disgusting, but the way the DM made me discover it created an emotional scene which all the other players liked. And so I thought to myself that maybe it was all part of the big plans that my DM had. So I endured this too. And I lied to him that I liked this idea at the end of the session, even though he said, "I was worried that you wouldn't have liked it, but I was prepared to try and convince ya." But it felt bad to turn him down at the time. I didn't want to ruin his plans, nor ruin the scene he created. Oh hey, the Department of Common Sense gave me a call while you guys were listening to me read the story, and they wanted me to give you a message. Oh crap, what was it again? Oh yeah, don't f***ing do this! People in the RPG community like to harp on and on about how the DM always has the power to say no to things. But here's a controversial take. Players can also tell the DM no. The whole point of playing a TTRPG is that you are presented with an imaginary world that you get to share with other people, that you get to run around in and engage in fun and wacky hijinks with your buddies. You know what doesn't sound like a fun and wacky hijink? Getting f***ing pregnant! OP made a huge mistake here. Not only did they keep their feelings of utter disgust and violation to themselves, but they also planted the idea into the DM's head that they're into it. I swear, sometimes the steps we take to avoid conflict create the most conflict. Just like in real life, something is terribly wrong if life-changing decisions are made for you and not by you. As a DM, you don't just get to say, "You now have a husband." That is a huge deal, and involves a lot of input from the player in order to make it work. If I were OP the second I heard, "Your character is pregnant," I would have whipped out my best "nuh-uh," and would have just straight up denied it. And when the DM inevitably hits me with the "why not?" I would just respond, "Well, DM, I don't want to be pregnant." The worst part is that probably wouldn't work, because our OP explicitly said that that is not something they wanted, and the DM said, "Yeah, but it's something I want." I believe that a DM should act as a servant to the players in the same way an elected official is supposed to use their power to act as a servant to their people. But instead, this DM is acting like a real-world politician and giving their buddies special treatment while being an abhorrent creep in his free time. You should never feel guilty about throwing a wrench in the DM's plans if those plans involve your continued neglect, abuse, or exploitation. What you should be doing is planning to throw a wrench in the direction of your DM instead. Maybe his head'll make a funny sound. For the rest of the second half of the campaign, everyone eventually got an upgraded version of their past unique skill, where I didn't get shit, even this time. And I was really worried that that was it, that the pregnancy was the big plan after all. The wizard even got to turn all the world back in time to save us from a TPK. Throughout the campaign, the DM always hyped us with bits of lore about the black, one-eyed dragon, which is the only living dragon in this setting, and the strongest opponents that we would ever encounter. Eventually, we were down to the last sessions, and I finally discovered the meaning behind my pregnancy. Apparently, my character is blessed or something by the overgod of this setting, and the child I'm carrying is super important. This blessing made it so that we successfully skipped an unbalanced boss fight in which the boss acknowledged me as the Chosen One, and let us go meet the black one-eyed dragon, which, for plot reasons, we have to defeat, or we doom the world. So this was our real final fight, and we had only one shot. The DM gives a long intro before rolling for initiative to the boss fight, and right at the end tells us to roll a reflex saving throw to defend ourselves against the Black Dragon's breath attack. My character does not pass the DC, and I get 40d6 worth of damage in my face, which quickly drops me to 30 HP. Then the DM asks if anyone is below half their HP after this attack, and I have to roll a fortitude saving throw. I roll a natural 1, and the DM asks me to roll a 1d6. 1 meaning instant death by decapitation, 2 to 5 means I lose a random limb, and 6 means nothing happens. I roll a 1 and I die. Not even during the fight, but right at the intro. We didn't even roll initiative, it just happened. I got so frustrated and angry about the fact that I lost the chance to fight the final BBEG, the true villain of this 6-year-long campaign that got hyped since the start of it, that I just left the Discord call and told them to continue without me because I'm not gonna watch it anyway. In the end, the blessing that I had from the Overgod didn't mean shit during this fight, where I thought I was super important. But no, I just died in a pathetic way, not even a cool description. I just died. They even won this fight without me. I wasn't needed at all. The DM didn't even try to bullshit some Deus Ex Machina just to make me fight it for at least one round. Like, I really wouldn't have minded dying during the fight for at least one round, because I at least got the chance to do something, to have a lasting impact to the fight, but no, nothing at all. Out of character, the party told me they could use a limited wish mid-fight to try and resurrect me. But that is such a bad action to take. It's a waste of an action in a fight where this fucking dragon can one-shot people. Cause what the do I do after I get resurrected? In 3.5, a caster that is resurrected has a 50% chance to lose any given spell, and I get back into the fight with 17 HP and a negative level. So not only would I have probably died again, but there was a big chance that I couldn't do shit, because what the is a caster without his spell slots? So I just told them not to do it, because I wanted them to win and not waste an overpowered spell on me. At the end of the fight, the party tried to resurrect me and I just told them, no. No, I didn't want to continue. I didn't want to know what the purpose of this pregnancy was. What the fuck was my blessing? I didn't want to know anything at all anymore with this fucking shitty campaign, nor how it ends, so that's just where I quit. I talked to the DM afterwards, and I told them again all of my complaints. Of all the things I didn't like. How I felt like a secondary character. How I felt like every fucking NPC was stronger and just overall better than me. And he explained to me that the big plan, after all, was a secret ending. Some of you might think that means a lot, right? I mean, it's a secret ending that only thanks to me we get to have, but what the f do I do with an epilogue? If I wanted to read a book, I wouldn't have played this campaign. Everyone got to shape the story during the campaign the way they wanted to thanks to their abilities, while I only got to watch. I wanted to feel powerful. I wanted my character to feel like the thing she always wanted to be. A legendary hero. But instead, all I got was the role of footstool to the party, the nickname living to hit bonus, and a fucking forced pregnancy. Sorry if this whole story is confusing, but it's hard for me to write a recap. I just feel so many things right now. I'm mostly just disappointed. I had so much faith in my DM, in my campaign. I felt like my character was an actual living being, and right now I just feel so bad that I wasted 6 years on this. Edit. I added this image as an answer to one of the comments. My character was the cat girl. End of story. Wow. That secret ending bit is actually infuriating. I could crouch down and have a Tacoma drive its bumper into my face at 40 miles an hour, and that would be less of a slap in the face than this bullshit. The DM is saying quite a few things with this secret ending thing, none of which is good. The first is that the DM is essentially telling you that he doesn't see you as a legitimate character, but as a plot point, who only exists to provide an interesting narrative for the other players. The second is that your character only matters after the game is over. And finally, the DM is saying that your character's only value comes from their ability to create another character that isn't you either. I understand that this DM thinks that he's God, but nobody signs up to carry around the settings version of Jesus when they sign up for Dungeons and Dragons. I have said this a million times, but that's only because it's so important for people to realize. No D&D is better than bad D&D. ROP was thugging it out for 6 years, and what did that get them? The same thing that Mindy Kaling got when she proposed remaking Scooby-Doo with her own self-insert at the helm. A heaping pile of shit that had no right to exist in the first place. With the exception of a few beer and pretzel type games, you put a lot of time and effort into a D&D game, and not having that time and effort be rewarded with a fun experience that you can look back on fondly from the nursing home is a pretty bad trade. Just think about all the things that OP could have been doing during the 4 hours a week they wasted during this game. They could have been reading finance books and becoming financially literate. They could have been learning a new skill to impress all the women at the local dive. Or they could be making me fan art. That's right, look at me with the smooth transition. How about we take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake? This week's fan art comes from viewer Silver Gray, whose artwork depicts... Okay, just some touch-ups here, and there we go. Now to send this off to the Victoria's Secret people, and that model money is gonna be rolling in. So are you done borrowing my computer? Thank you again, Silver Gray, for submitting your art. Between the breasts, realistic human feet, and gentle caress of the AR-15, I feel like I've been flashbanged. The authorities have been contacted. If you'd like to see your fan art featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and send in your fan art. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon and merchandise links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.